This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. All right, everybody, we're officially live. Everybody, welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast, your place for all things Red Wings, all things Blackhawks, and news around the NHL. We're missing Nick tonight, so it's going to be a three-man show. Yep. I'm your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, David Barnhouse and Tim Stompanato. Everybody, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Good to be here. Sad to hear about Nick. You know, I heard he was checking his mailbox today and two rattlesnakes just jumped out, bit him right in the eyes.
You hate to see it. Seems to be a thing for him. You know, upper body injury, 2 to 3 weeks. Hard to say.
Yep. Hopefully, you know, eyes heal up soon so he can see the computer to log into, you know, the show. We miss you, Nick.
Unfortunately, this week it was kind of a slow week overall for both the Hawks and the Wings. I mean, nothing really was going on for either club. The league was kind of quiet this week too. Not a lot really going on around the NHL either. Just a couple pieces of news to talk about for at least the Red Wings. Simon Edvinsson, much in the vein of Moritz Seider, where he looked very good his draft plus one or his draft year out of the draft, playing over in Sweden. Offensively, he looks very good. Leading his club offensively in the defenseman category. Great sign for him. Also, the Wings really good at 5v5 this season. This last week has not been good for them, but overall, looking at this league's sample size so far, I think the Wings are sitting at the second highest expected goals at 5v5. So like the Wings 5v5 has gotten a lot better than it was, 2 seasons ago. And then the last thing, the Blashill Blender is back in effect, and it just wouldn't be the Wings unless we took great prospects and tied them and anchored them to aging veterans. So I kind of want to talk about that for a second, in particular with Moritz Seider. But that's it for the Wings. Not a lot to talk about this week for the Red Wings. Tim, what's going on over in Hawks world?
What's going on right now? The Hawks are holding on, which is, I think, what everyone on the Hawks side is excited about. Having a pretty relatively successful Western road trip. Bit of bad news. Riley Stillman is out with a knee injury. But with that said, he's been on IR. And so Wyatt Kalynuk is getting called up from Rockford. He's going to be making his return. And Fleury looks phenomenal. He's looking like the Vezina caliber goaltender that we traded for. So not a big, not a lot of news going on, but stability and consistency throughout the week, which is what the Hawks have been needing.
Okay. And like I said, not a lot on the actual league front. Just not really much coming out this week overall in the NHL. Let's go and just jump into the Wings news first. The big one that I think most fans should be excited about is Simon Edvinsson's just continuing to be good in the Swedish Hockey League. For anybody who doesn't keep up with the hockey world, the Swedish Hockey League is the third, maybe second best league in the world, depending on who you talk to. This kid just got drafted last year, and he's leading his team offensively from the blue line. There was a Wings prospect who did this, I believe it was last year, by the name of Moritz Seider, who kind of looked really good this season and is, second in the league for rookies for the scoring race. By the name of Moritz Seider, you might know about him. This is so good for Detroit. Like, Detroit has needed very high-end blue line prospects, and they look to have another one in Simon Edvinsson.
Yeah, he's looked great. I was really happy we drafted him. I'm trying to remember who the other defenseman was that was rated higher than him. Can anyone help me out with the name? It was an American player.
Owen Power was obviously the consensus first overall that year. Who was it? I can't remember.
Was that the Carson Lambos year?
I honestly can't remember.
Let me pull it up. Because, I remember when the draft like stuff was going on, I didn't want him.
Say, I remember I was super high on Simon Edvinsson, but I didn't think he was going to still be there when we got there.
You wanted the other goaltender too, right, David?
I wanted.
You wanted
Jesper Wallstedt.
yeah, Wallstat.
Because that's who was like he was like rated much higher than he was drafted. And then when I started reading about Kosa, I was like, nope, I'm very happy with Kosa. I can't think of his name now, and it's gonna drive me nuts.
I don't know.
It wasn't what was it? William Wallander, was it?
No.
I don't know, but either way,
Yeah.
like Simon Edvinsson has been a very, very good defenseman over in Sweden, playing on their blue or playing for the blue line.
He's been phenomenal, and you had posted a chart with him and Cider with like a lot of their different stats, and you texted us like could be the Wings next, Seabrook and Keith, and I'm just like, man, that's just amazing to think about. Like, Cider is no, slump on offense because, like we said, he's second in points in the NHL for rookies behind his fellow teammate Lucas Raymond.
That's amazing.
But I think between the two of them, Edvinsson is the more offensive, talented player. So you put both of them on the blue line together when they're, aging up, not now, but like imagine what they're going to be like together in like 5-6 years. Whew, that's exciting. So I'm really happy with
that's
this.
one of the big things that you've been missing the last couple of years, honestly, was not only a stable blue line, but a blue line that with some all-stars on it. And yeah, with Cider shaping up to be as obviously a slam dunk as we've been saying on here for a while, and Edvinsson looking great. Like, I know it's sort of blasphemous almost for me in my head to hear the new somebody else's Keith and Seabrook, but yeah, I mean, that's what wins a championship, a pairing like that. And then if that allows Hronek to be on your second line, great. Like frees him up, to maybe take a little more of those offensive draws, put him in a better position to succeed. That's huge. I mean, that sort of combination and that flexibility with your defensemen, that makes or breaks.
Yep. And I mean, like you put Hronek with another prospect who seems to be blooming right now with Donovan Sabrango. Like, if he continues to grow, I could see him fitting in as a second line pairing. Like, could you imagine those top four defensemen of a Edvinsson and Cider with a Hronek and possibly Sabrango or someone else that could easily slot in there? Like, whew.
And like the thing is, top four defensemen, you can get them on the free agency market for 4, maybe 5 million, or you can even trade for one with like a second or third round draft pick plus a prospect. Like middle pair defensemen aren't insanely hard to come by.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you can develop your own, you're saving money. And like we said with Yzerman, like the guy knows what he's doing. Tampa Bay is, of course, they're back-to-back Cup champions. And like we said before the show started, a lot of his picks, like that have developed into phenomenal players, your Kucherovs and your Points, were mid-round picks. And I mean, the Wings were known to have stars come out of the late rounds. I mean, Zetterberg and Datsuk.
Yep.
6th and 7th round picks. Yzerman learned from Ken Holland. Yes, we gave Ken Holland a lot of shit
at the end,
but the guy knew what he was doing. Yes, it can be safe to say that he was trying to put, a Band-Aid on a leak in a ship because he was trying to keep the playoff streak alive, which, as Jordan and I said numerous times in the past, we should have just torn it down then. But Yzerman learned from one of the best, and I trust what he's doing. And when we see these players like Cider, who none of us expected us to draft, and Edvinsson, which I know we were very high on because I think Jordan and I both said we wanted a defenseman more than one of those wingers because we're pretty deep at winger. So we were very happy with those picks, and I look forward to it. Speaking of other Wings prospects, Soderblom's looking fan-freaking-tastic over in Sweden as well. So can't wait.
Speaking of like offensive, one thing that kind of shocked me this week and I was reading about it. So I'm trying to remember where I saw the graph at, but basically there was this graph and it sort of like charted,
Oh, it was on Reddit, I thought.
it had like, power play offense on the y axis and then it had a 5-on-5 offense on the x axis.
Okay.
The Wings were the second farthest team over on the x axis for 5-on-5 production,
Found it.
or expected 5-on-5 goals in like
Wow.
production. That's nothing to slouch at. Like the
Mhm.
only team they had trailed at expected 5-on-5 is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Say what
They're
you will
kind of
about
a
the
big
power,
deal.
like say what you will about the power play in Detroit not being as good as it should be. 5-on-5, the majority of the game is played at 5-on-5. So to see that this Wings team is already producing at that high of a level before Edvinsson steps in, before another player steps in, before Danny DeKaiser's gone, like that's a great sign of where this rebuild is at and where it's going.
Tim, I just
On-
sent it to you so you can see it.
Awesome, thank you. And well, and something you brought up, Jordan, about the power play and whatnot. I think people yes, you're on the power play, so you should be scoring more goals. That said, during the Hawks dynasty years, we never had a good power play. And it's certainly not as good as a team that had Kane, Tays, Hossa, Sharp, Keith, Sieber. Like it's insanity. Our 5-on-5 was a power play unit sometimes. But we never had that as like a driving force that ever really won us games.
Yeah.
If you can be consistent and light it up at 5-on-5, and if you have a strong penalty kill, that's all you need.
Mhm.
And a power play that's not a liability, you're fine, and your team is shaping up to have that sort of structure.
Yeah. And I mean, we talk about power play goals. Power play goals, they're important, but
Yeah,
a lot of teams, they're professional players. They practice how to defend against a power play. Like,
right.
yes, you want to score on a power play. It's frustrating when you don't, especially when you have like a 5-on-3. But it's not gonna make or break you. I mean, the Wings, we had one of the worst power plays the last couple seasons, but we were also one of the worst teams. So it's whatever. Um, your 5-on-5 has to be clicking like more than your power play. You're not going to get a penalty all the time. So your 5-on-5 is much more important than that. And to see the Red Wings with that chart where our 5-on-5 is, I'm just like, wow, that's exciting to see.
And like I kind of think that speaks to, the moves that Steve Yzerman made in the offseason. Like Sider has been a good contribution. Raymond has been a good contribution. Nick Leddy's been a good contribution. Alex Nedeljkovic has been a pretty decent contribution to this team staying
Mhm.
at 5-on-5. Like it's a lot of small pieces slowly moving the whole team forward.
Letty, oh my God, Letty is like the other side of the pillow. That guy is just cold as ice. Like whenever he has the puck, there is not a sense of nervousness in me. I'm just like, I trust him. He's gonna
Wow.
keep us safe.
He's come a long way. I love that. Listen, I loved Letty, but a lot of our fan base ripped him apart a lot of the time as like a defensive liability. So that is awesome to hear him as a now veteran defenseman
I think
having
he
that
just is.
responsibility.
I think he's just kind of figured it out, and he just he's doing all the right things.
I love it. I love to hear that.
I think part of that might be just due to what Barry Trotz was doing with the Islanders last year. Like
Yeah.
the Islanders, for the majority of their season, were not playing interesting hockey. It was a lot of like just trap people in the neutral zone and just slowly generate chances. Nick Leddy had to be part of that team and buy into that structure. I think a lot of that might have carried on or carried over with him to the Wings.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, you said it, Tim, when Chicago had a 5-on-5, a lot of times that was how their power play unit, or
Yeah.
that's how it felt like a power play. But you're not on a power play a lot of the time. And if you don't have, those big guns up front who can just constantly light the lamp and just drive offense in a huge way, your defensemen do have to actually play defense.
Yup.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, you need to have a 5-on-5. Like the power play is great, like we've been saying over and over again. But you're not going to have a power play every game. There's been games where I've played on NHL where I don't have a single penalty, so it's just like got to score on 5-on-5. And
Yep.
same with the Wings. Like there's been games where there's maybe like 2 or 3 penalties the entire game or less. just because the teams aren't committing any penalties. Like, cool. But speaking of our power play, it does look good. It does look good. Tanguay has done much better than Bausma. And I think it's just adding those pieces of a Raymond and a Sider as well, like, and a Letty. Like, these people make a difference. And Iserman brought in the right people, and he drafted the right people. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next.
One thing I do want to talk about before we move over to the Hawks, and this is something like, so we have this saying that we have been using the past couple of years, the Blashill Blender. As much as I understand, sometimes stuff's not working. You've got to try to like just get players clicking together. Like, I get that you can't set up a roster and then say this is concrete for 82 games. Like, I get that. I think a lot of fans get that. But there is also something to be said about, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And we all know Moritz Seider is going to be a top pair defenseman, potentially a number one defenseman in the NHL when he really hits his prime. I don't get why Jeff Blashill is blending Seider around with all these other players. Like, last night, he was playing with Danny DeKeyser, who it's at the end of his career. He's making Seider basically pick up DeKeyser's slack, and you're kind of handicapping a player who you're trying to make grow.
Mm-hmm. If I'm being honest, I've never seen anything in Danny DeKeyser, ever.
Really?
I've just never been a fan of his. But like Jordan said, if it's not broke, why change it? Why fix it? Seider's been playing great hockey with
Nick Leddy,
who I just, called the other side of the pillow, cold as ice. But why change something that's working? And we've had a rough West Coast stretch, as we just saw. Go back to what was working. Like, the teams that were beating your Golden Knights when we beat them, that beat the Caps, that beat Edmonton Oilers. Why change something that's working?
Is there a possibility that he's trying to look for balance, trying to balance out a couple of different defensive pairings, maybe? Maybe he thinks Seider can cover for, maybe DeKeyser can teach a couple of things to Seider, and Seider can cover defensively some of DeKeyser's lapses. I'm not sure.
Having DeKeyser teach him something is having Eriksson teach someone how to use their body. It's not going to work.
Like, my thing is, like, I get the Wings want Seider to grow into like a true number one defenseman. I want it too, but there's a difference between putting a player in a position where they're going to develop and where, like, let's say you put them in on the penalty kill when the game is on the line. That's a learning situation, right? Not stapling them to a veteran for a full game who is slowing them down and they're constantly having to cover for. Like, one is like a moment where, like, it's a moment you can learn, versus one of them being you are constantly having to do something. And I get it. Like, eventually Seider will have to carry somebody, but I don't ever think it's going to be at the point, like, after the season when DeKeyser's gone, where Seider's going to have to carry another aging defenseman. Like, I don't think DeKeyser's back next season. I don't think that Mark Stahl comes back next year either. Like, Detroit's got nothing but youth coming through.
Yeah. Oh, man. So if we lose Stahl, do you think we're going to sign another defenseman? Or do you think we're going to push some of our younger guys forward, like Edvinsson?
I mean, I feel like Edmondson's going to have to crack the roster next year, right?
And
like,
Donovan Sobrano, do you think he's coming up?
I want to see more consistency with Sabrango before he gets a call up. I think
what's Lindholm looking like?
Lindstrom looks fine.
Or
like,
Lindstrom,
he's
yeah.
like bottom pair defenseman right now. It's okay. Like, nothing special, but decent.
Okay.
But like the other holes that they're like, let's say like next season they have Seider, Edvinsson, Hronek, Lindstrom. So like there's 4 defensemen, right? They need to get 2 more. So like they could either find one via, trade or free agency, which, okay, the Wings have for the past 3 years done that. Like, they got Stahl, they picked up Letty. The year before that, who did we pick up? We picked up a defenseman from somebody.
Because you got Merrill in the off season.
But anyway, like we've gone out and we've signed like older guys.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure Detroit will do that again this upcoming season. I don't see a situation where like long-term Sider's going to have to carry a guy for another 2 or 3 years. Like
I hope not.
I don't think that Detroit's going to have him in that situation. And I don't get why Blashill's making him do that right now. Like nobody's going to have to carry more at Sider either. Like, especially in the immediate future, in the next, 4 or 5 years, that he's going to carry his own line, his own play.
Definitely.
Like, I just don't get it. Like, it wasn't broke. Like him and Nick Leddy looked fine. Admittedly, was Hronek having a hard time carrying DeKaiser? Yeah, but he was doing okay doing it. Like, I don't know. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sort of looking at your defensive pairings right now, and the only thing that makes sense to me is that he was trying to go for some balance. Put Hronek up, or put Sider up there, because I know you've had concerns with, not you personally, but like Hronek's been in and out of the lineup. And so maybe putting him on that second line with a responsible Leddy can shield Hronek a little bit as he still develops some of the rough edges. Whereas Moritz Seider, there's a feeling that he can stand on his own and carry DeKaiser, where Hronek was clearly, there were some concerns. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, is if this is a balancing act and not a who's going to work best together act.
I get that.
As far as I'm aware, those are the only pieces of Wings news that I had to talk about, unless you have something else, David.
No, not really. I think that we covered everything there.
Okay. Tim, walk us through what's going on in Hawks World.
Hawks World, I mean, we are on our Wild West road trip for the time being
ours.
Still. What's up? Yeah, same as yours. We've been away, so we've got a couple of road games in a row. We had the Coyotes last Friday, and then this week it's been the Kraken, Oilers, Canucks. We've got the Flames tomorrow. But we've, and again, we'll get into this in the rewind, but be the Kraken, which good, was hoping we would. Oilers beat us, but McDavid's been on it. McDavid and Draisaitl, it's not even fair right now. And then we beat the Canucks, and Fleury got his first shutout. So all in all, and again, I'm worried about the Flames tomorrow, just because they've been on a tear.
Hot.
Yeah, like
hot right now.
It's the best Flames team I've seen in the last 5 years. I would say. I think that team under Daryl Sutter has really revamped them and brought a little life back into the team. But if we come out of this West Coast road trip 2-2, fantastic, given where we were. And, you're seeing this team tighten up defensively a little bit more. We're controlling the neutral zone a little bit more. The areas that were falling apart, we're still making one too many passes. The drop passes killing us. We need to tighten up, but the actual defensive lapses we are getting better at, and we're controlling play more. So that's something that I think I've seen on this road trip, just trying to catch what I've caught. It's not always the prettiest, but they are. I no longer feel like we are every game being stuck in our zone. We're controlling and like handling the neutral zone a little bit better. So I'm thrilled about that. Unfortunately, our defensive core just can't stay healthy. So I feel like every other week somebody's injured, and we have to swap somebody who was injured back into play, which is what we're doing again, because Riley Stillman, who's been healthy this year, is now officially on injured reserve. The last game against the Canucks, Gustafsson accidentally pushed Tyler Mott into Stillman, and he came down weird on his leg. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't a bad hit by any means, but sometimes you just catch a weird hit on a play. And so Stillman is out with a knee injury, which means there's a new spot up for our old friend Wyatt Kalynuk, who's been rehabbing and getting his game back in Rockford from injury. So he got called up. So that means right now, health-wise, we've got Seth Jones. Caleb Jones is now back officially from injury. Dahan is back from injury. Murphy and McCabe have been healthy. And we've still got Gustafson. Every time I think somebody's coming back healthy, that means Gustafson goes back to being a seventh defenseman or waived at some point. But he finds a way to stay on the roster. God bless him. Even if it's pushing Tyler Mott into somebody's leg. No, that's a terrible but that's a terrible thing to say. But that said, I think when we actually get all of our defensemen healthy and we get the defensive core that we were promised at the start of the year, where Gustafson is our seventh defenseman or less, I'm really excited because Wyatt Kalynuk, I mean, we've talked about this a lot of times. Wyatt Kalynuk is just a younger Gustafson that is maybe a little more stable. So again, that's sort of where we're at. The only other thing of note really is that Fleury looked great in the last. Fleury's looked great throughout this entire West Coast trip. He has looked like a Vezina caliber goaltender again, and he's been the reason some of our sloppy play. I mean, he made like 40 saves in the Canucks game to get his first shutout with the Hawks. We're still letting in too many shots. I mean, that's plain and simple. It's bad. Like where you guys are at defensively, we should be there with the addition of Seth Jones, with the addition of McCabe. Like there's no reason that we shouldn't be a much tighter D-core. And maybe some of that's injuries. Maybe some of it was Colleton's system and we're seeing a shift under King. But right now, there's nothing flashy going on, but we are seeing stability.
Yep, that's what you guys needed. I think King wasn't going to come out and just wow people and become,
oh God, no.
Like, what's the word? I can't think of it. Just brilliant coach that's going to lead you guys to championships. But he's going to stabilize the ship.
Yep.
And settle things down for when you guys bring in whoever it may be.
Well, King actually made a good point in one of the last games. He's like, we are finally getting to a point where when something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. It's now, okay, something went wrong. That's okay. We'll figure it out. There is hope and an optimistic, it's not a defeatist attitude on the bench anymore. And it definitely feels like they got to that point by the end of the Colleton time where one thing went wrong and we just imploded. It's why we couldn't get a lead. We couldn't hold a lead. The minute anything went wrong, it was a spiral effect that we just shut down. This team is having fun. This team looks relaxed. They're joking a lot more. Granted, winning helps, but you don't comfortably start winning until you're able to stop gripping your stick and stressing out and being able to make that chance because you're not in your head.
Yep.
If King has done one thing for the Hawks, it's relax them and get them back to playing with their instincts and playing fun hockey.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, it kind of went from the sky is falling to crap, it's raining. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's
like
a really good way to put it. I like that.
Yeah, I like it.
You know, I'm trying to think. You guys have, what is it? You have Seth Jones, Connor Murphy, Calvin DeHaan. At least I would consider DeHaan a top 4 guy.
He's still a top 4 guy. I would say, yeah. So our top 4 theoretically is Seth Jones, Murphy, DeHaan, and McCabe. And then we've got Riley Stillman, Caleb Jones, and Wyatt Kalynuk as our 3 rotating bottom defensemen. And then we've got Gustafson, who has been serviceable. He's exactly what you wanted. Someone to plug in while we had numerous people injured.
He's just happy to be there.
Yeah, and he is actually. Like, that's a great... He's peaked. He's at where he is going to be. If everyone gets healthy and nobody's injured anymore, we can waive him. I don't think anyone's going to pick him up. I think we could put him down to Rockford and then call him up if somebody gets injured again. But I like having that bottom combination of any three of Stillman, Jones, and Kalanick, because that gives you a different look depending on the game you need.
Just watch you guys wave him, and then Eiserman picks him up and flips him for a 3rd and 4th.
That would be, I was going to say, I can't see Eiserman picking him up to use him, but I could see him do something like that, which is very irritating to me.
There's been times where it's like, wait, why is this move doesn't make sense? And then like after the things play, like this was a great move. He's a genius.
That said, I like Gustafsson at 750K.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
He's being paid exactly what he should be paid. And he's exactly where he needs to be. And I don't think he expects literally anything more. And I don't think, as long as we don't use him or view him in that way, he's a great little piece of depth that can chip in offensively.
And we kind of talk about it like with a lot of like teams that have young prospects trying to come in. He's basically a measuring stick. A lot of these older veterans they're basically measuring sticks that organizations will pay, league minimum or like maybe $1 million a year and say, be better than this veteran. If you are, cool, you make our squad. If not, you need to show better. Like, and $1 million for that piece, like he's not even $1 million, but $1 million for that piece. Okay.
And that's exactly it. Like, can you be better than Eric Gustafsson? Awesome. Then you're going to be good. If you can't, then realistically, you can't be on this team right now.
Yep.
Almost said Murphy. Fleury, I have liked a lot what we have seen of him this week. Like the Vancouver game was strong. Who was it? They didn't play him last night, the night before.
The Lankinen played the Oilers, and I do feel bad about that. I don't know, we weren't our best that game, and we just really let them run roughshod over us, which is frustrating. I think my one knock, and usually I'm a big Lankinen fan, he looked like he was second guessing himself, like he didn't necessarily trust his own instincts. That's concerning. Mm-hmm. But it's not something I've seen a lot from him, and so I'm going to chalk it up to he was playing against two of the best players in the world. And sometimes, I mean, he's made entire defensive cores look idiotic. So poor Lincoln, and I can cut a little slack. But Kraken, we looked great. We kept them 0 until the third period where they rallied and got 2 goals. DeBrincat, how could I forget? DeBrincat got his Gordie Howe hat trick during that game, which is my favorite hat trick in the world. Get yourself a goal, get yourself an assist, get yourself a little Donnybrook, a little fight there. And it's the cat, they're talking to him afterwards, like, should you be fighting? And he's like, I don't like to fight. I like to score goals, but got some bad cross checks. They were cross checking Kaner, and somebody had to do it. Like, that's what I'm talking about. How many teams have we seen where they're just letting people get away with stuff because they just don't have that fire in them at that time? Having DeBrincat being like, somebody's got to do this. Like, that's such a good sign for a team that wants to live to fight another day.
Oh yeah, you love to see it. Yeah, Timmy, I love the old Gordie Howe hat trick as well.
How can you not?
I forget what website it was on years ago. I found a T-shirt, and it was like 1G plus 1A plus 1F equals 9. And I'm like, I want that shirt.
That's the kind of shirt that people look at you and you're like, I have no idea what. And you're like, no, listen, if you know, you know.
Does he know what math is?
Yeah, it's that new math. I don't know about it.
Algebra letters in it, Tim. I don't like that.
Yeah, once my numbers have letters in it, I don't understand that math so good. But yeah, no. Honestly, like I said, if we get out of this West Coast road trip 2-2, fantastic. Well, I guess if we lump the Coyotes in with that, then it would be 3-2. We would walk away with a win on that road trip. I would not have guessed that given the first 11 games of the year.
Yeah, the terrible losing skid.
11 losses in a row.
At least one of our teams can beat the Coyotes.
Yeah, Max Bolton made a good point. Like, good teams don't lose that game.
Yep, he did.
No.
And again, I'm certain our team's not good. So
the wheels aren't falling off. Like, we know we're not going to be a playoff contending team, but I don't know, the energy is starting to mellow out a bit, I think, to where we are. We're not a top team.
no. And that's what's it that you got to stay, you can't get too high, you can't get too low. If they can drive that energy and keep it engaged every night, but not burning out, that's going to be a big win for the Wings.
And I mean, we're winning games we're not supposed to be winning. That's what's most exciting for me. Like when we beat the Caps, when we beat the Oilers, when we beat Vegas, I'm like,
but when you lose those gimme games, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I looked at the Kraken game. I would have been really frustrated if we lost to the Kraken, just because even though defensively they've been really actually a lot better than their numbers would suggest, goaltending's been rough, and I'm a big Grubauer fan.
Yeah, Grubauer's not look good.
Again, he's not my fantasy team, and I wish he wasn't. But yeah, no, they have enough offensive firepower to be like no worse than the Coyotes or some of these other Canucks or anything like that. But it's their goaltending that's really let them down, and that's got to be frustrating for Seattle after seeing what Vegas did in their first year. But again, I didn't like how we won against the Coyotes the other night. I thought it was an ugly win. I thought the win against the Canucks was an ugly win. We're not winning where you guys are at, where those sort of more gimme games, they're not gimme games yet. And we're in that same boat as those teams.
Jordan, there was a piece of Wings thing we didn't talk about. We've played more games than like all the other teams too. I just thought of like,
really.
We're at 20 games, and the next team under us, I think, is at like 14.
How did you pull that off?
I don't know. We just been playing a lot of hockey.
Well, I know some of the Ottawa games got postponed, but
well, I know like the next 2 weeks we're only going to have like I think 3 games. Like the rest of the league is going to catch up in the next 2 weeks.
That's fair.
Like we had a ton of like game off.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't like play. We played like 1 or 2 games a week for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, you guys, when you're talking about Seattle and their offense, it made me think of the game Seattle just got destroyed by in Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado's offense is freaking clicking. In 3 of their 4 last games, they scored 6 and 7 goals.
And McKinnon's not in.
Yeah, they won against Vancouver 7-1, San Jose 6-2, and then Seattle 7-3. Like their offense.
That said,
firing.
None of those teams are
good.
Cup contending teams right now, but
they're
putting on a clinic against the teams where they should be without McKinnon, and that's a big deal for a team that I've always knocked on their lack of depth.
Yep.
I don't think I have any other Wings or Hawks news. There is one piece of news I kind of want to talk about. It was an interesting article that came out this week.
I love it.
It was about Bowen Byram actually. So
yeah,
I kind of forgot about.
Is it the Athletic article?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that. I would love to talk a little bit about that actually.
So
I'm going to skim it real quick.
Yeah.
So basically like the gist of the article is kind of like how these young players handle it when, they have an injury or injury history that could legitimately mean that their career is either over or it's not going to pan out like they thought. And what was Byram's? Was it a concussion?
Byram had a slew of things. He had a concussion. He had some vertigo, which could be argued as a product of the concussion. He also had COVID. But like the concussion, I think, was the most recent one that, he would think he was better and symptoms would roar back. And he's like, he's like on the phone with his mom talking about like
what am I going to do?
This might be done. I might have to figure out what to do after hockey now.
Yeah, he had vertigo too. Vertigo,
vertigo's it's ended careers.
Yeah, there's a wrestler that wrestles for a company AEW. Like he was their champion for almost a year, and he was dealing with a lot of injuries, including vertigo. And he said, I just had to like teach myself how to wrestle and work through vertigo. And I'm like,
that is not easy.
no.
That is awful, actually. No, that was gut-wrenching reading that article, because you've got somebody like Bowen Byram, first round pick. He was somebody that was in the contention of being taken third overall the year we took Doc. A lot of people wanted Byram, but he had already had a concussion or two before he was drafted. And for these young guys, especially these first overall picks, there's an argument that both the teams that have them and the players themselves put way too much pressure on themselves. And these kind of injuries, it's not just the physical aspects of them, it's the mental and emotional aspects of these injuries that could completely derail not only your career, but your mental state.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing that like we don't talk about very often. It's very easy for us as fans to like watch them play on TV and be like, they're making, $1 million+ a year. They've got sponsorships and endorsements. They're living the high life. It must be just great, but it's not always rainbows and roses.
And it's also, they get paid the money that, again, Bowen Byram's on an entry level still, so he's making $925K a year. Awesome, until we factor in the fact that like my job couldn't give me CTE.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, these guys arguably could work until they're 30, and then that of their entire life, they're dealing with different health aspects. Their bodies are beat to hell. You have hope the guys that went to college at least have a college degree, but like if you went up through the major
like
juniors,
minors,
forget it. You don't have anything to prepare you outside of the sport that you love. And that's terrifying. And the league has gotten a lot better at, or the teams, I guess, specifically have gotten a lot better at like finding jobs for a lot of guys post career. But for a long time, and it's still an issue, like depression and a lot of other like struggles, especially substance abuse and whatnot, rear their heads when guys retire because they have what do they do now?
Yep. Very true.
And to have Bowen Byram dealing with that at 21, like, oh my God, I don't care how much money you make. That's a kid that's dealing with an incredibly traumatic, a traumatic brain injury, and also a very traumatic realization in their life. I don't know. We don't talk about the human side enough. I think we do. I think we do a good job of bringing up the human side, but in general.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just want to touch on that for a second. I forgot that came out this week, and I thought it was just something like
good.
It doesn't usually come out in the hockey world that often, or in sports for that matter that often.
It usually comes. It's starting to now, and it usually comes out from either veteran players like a Bobby Ryan, who comes back and talks about stuff, or guys that are retired and they say, "You don't realize where I was at," or something like that. Jordan Tutu is a great example of talking about hockey. What's up?
Yes, I love like the things he said. I love Jordan Tutu.
I'm a huge Jordan Tutu fan. I love the fact that he played for the Hawks for a year.
For us too.
He's great. But like he was a great one post-playing career, opening a lot of people's eyes, I think. Mm-hmm. But to have somebody like Byram, who is at the start of his career talking like that, it shows the shift in a new generation of hockey that's able to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, Tutu wrote a book, All the Way Life on Ice. I remember when he was promoting it on Twitter.
He's such an incredible story, incredible person. I'm a huge Jordan Tutu fan.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Me too.
We can move on to the next segment of our show. It's the flashback and the flash forward segment. Basically, what we do is we recap the week that was and the week that's going to be for both the Hawks and the Wings. We started with the Wings news at the top of the show, so we'll go ahead and just start with them first for the flashback segment. And spoiler alert, it was not a good one. Oh boy.
It was just like the Wild Wild West movie with Will Smith. Not a good one.
Well, that's in the eye of the beholder, unlike this Wings week.
So I can't remember if the Columbus game finished while we were recording last week. So we'll just talk about it anyway. The Wings had a 5-3 loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets, a 5-2 loss to the Dallas Stars, a 5-2 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights, and a 2-1 overtime loss to the Arizona Coyotes. That's 4 straight L's.
Yikes.
Columbus, I think, was winnable. Arizona should have been a win.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas and Dallas, we both admitted were toss-ups, but not good to get blown up, especially. I don't even want to say about Arizona because it wasn't necessarily a blowout, but just the fact that the Wings could not get it going.
With Arizona, we let them get into the game. It was our own fault we lost that game. But going back to like Vegas, we had beaten Vegas previously, didn't we? Or had we?
Yeah, we beat them previously.
Yeah. And so that's what we were kind of hoping on. And I don't know, things could have been different in the Dallas game if I think Larkin didn't get pulled out of it for the false positive.
That's a good point.
But with the Golden Knights, it was always going to be tough. And then you had the scary moment with Seider where he took the puck to the knee and could not get off the ice, like he struggled, which was a very scary moment. But then the next day, skating perfectly fine, like nothing had happened. So I'm really hoping they check on the hockey puck to see if it's doing okay.
German engineering.
German machine don't break.
But just not a good week for the Wings overall. Like none of the games they were in were close except for the Arizona one. And the Arizona one, going into that game, you expect that the Wings team, like we were saying earlier, with how good their 5-on-5 has been, they should have taken Arizona at least.
Easily. I thought it should have been a win. And Tim brought up a point from our good friend Max Boltman earlier, like good teams win those games. Like they don't lose those games. And I'm not saying we're an awful, terrible, shitty team like we were a couple of years ago, but we're not there yet. Like, yes, we've been hyped. Like, oh yeah, the Wings, we're doing great. We're not like Nick roller coaster level where it's Wings are back, then Wings are pain, Wings are back, then Wings are pain. Like, it's okay to be happy, but we're not gonna say we're a playoff contending team right now, and that shows it right there.
I mean, I don't know. Like my big takeaway was just that the Wings, they need to come out of the gate trying to win games. Like you can't let the other team get a foothold because as soon as you do, you're playing from behind and then you're taking chances you don't need to be taking. You're, as we say, gripping the stick. You're trying too hard. It just, I don't know. Like we're not there. Me and Dave, we both agree we're not a playoff team still. We're still probably 2 real pieces away from being a perennial playoff team, but you would have liked to have seen at least a little bit better this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress. We're better than we were, but we're not there yet.
The Hawks, I mean, man, you guys had a little bit of a better week than we did, Tim.
Hawks are back.
Okay. Nick.
Yeah, no, Nick's not here, so somebody's got to say it. No, we had a good week. Did we have a full sweep? No. Did I expect a full sweep? No. We beat the Kraken 4-2. Love it. We got pretty badly beat by the Oilers 5-2. I thought that game was going to overtime just because we typically have historically had McDavid's number, but if those two are loose, if McDavid and Draisaitl are loose, I'm sorry, you're not going to win. And we don't have the tools in place to overcome that yet. So love the Kraken win, understand the Oilers loss. That 1-0 win against the Canucks, I don't know how I feel about that. It was an ugly win. We were sloppy a lot of the game. I'm glad we won. We won because of Fleury. That's it. 40 shots on goal. The man was a wall. We could have played a lot better. The up front in front of him, they could have played a lot better. That said, I'll take an ugly win over a pretty loss any day of the week. So We got out of this week 2-1. Not looking forward to Calgary tomorrow, which is usually a team that I'm used to being like, well, at least we got Calgary tomorrow. Sutter's making Gaudreau look like that whole team look like the force that it was supposed to be when Johnny Gaudreau was, in his peak and Monahan was the number one. Like the pieces have been there for years. They've just finally got someone that knows how to wield it, knows how to motivate the room. Good on them. I'd love to see where they continue going. Hopefully we're the ones that can stall them out a little bit.
Speaking of this whole week, I mean,
yeah.
I feel like this was like a really solid week for you guys. Like the Edmonton game, like the Oilers have been stupid good this season.
Yeah.
What have they got? Like 2 losses through the season so far?
And McDavid and Draisaitl like lead the league in points, each of them. It's absolutely offensive.
Like McDavid and Draisaitl are the new Crosby Malkin. Like
easy. I would argue better than Crosby Malkin.
It's the Oilers. Like I'm happy for Oilers fans because they spent like a decade in the dumpster, but
yeah, I mean, it's better than at least the Oilers have something to show for it. Buffalo's just maybe starting to not be a dumpster fire.
Weekly Buffalo shit on thread.
Actually, that said, the Buffalo Sabres blew a lead and the Blue Jackets won 7-4. So there you go, Buffalo. Have fun. But no, I knew this Oilers team was going to be a challenge. It's a different feeling than they've had the last couple of years. I don't know. What do you guys think of the Canucks?
I don't like it. I'll be honest. Like, I know a lot of people are hyped, and I mean super hyped on Quinn Hughes. I know a lot of people are hyped on Quinn Hughes, and this bugs me because it's all over Wings Reddit. Whenever Zadina gets brought up, I always see the same people saying, we could have had Quinn Hughes.
Cool.
The Wings didn't pick Quinn Hughes. And guess what? I don't think Quinn Hughes is a superstar on the Red Wings. Sorry, I just don't. What was it? Like 2 years ago, we were looking at his actual defensive metrics. They were awful. Like,
well, you know how I feel about like the new age offensive defensemen. They might as well just be forwards. I don't care. It's great to have one, but that is not your superstar.
Like true superstar defensemen have to play both defense and offense. Like John Carlson, superstar defenseman, but guess what? He can also play defense.
Duncan Keith,
superstar defenseman,
playing defense.
Like, I don't know. I'm not sold on Vancouver yet.
Pettersson hasn't looked good to me. I feel like he's not moving his feet. I feel like he's not keeping his head. I don't know. I don't like that team right now. They have a lot of talent on paper, but that talent is not translating to the ice. The only person I like, Thatcher Demko. Still a big Thatcher Demko fan, but you give up enough and a puck's going to go in.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Pettersson has definitely cooled down this year. Like,
I have not seen such a stark shift from like, this guy's an all-star, to that kind of drop in someone that age. I don't know, maybe the William Nylander year when he held out and signed and came in. But even then, like, Pettersson missed training camp. That's it. He didn't miss half the year. I don't know what's going on with that. And you've still got like Bo Horvat, Brock Boeser, like you still got a decent bit of depth on that team, especially in your like top 6. I don't know. I like Tyler Myers.
I don't know. I'm not sold on Vancouver yet.
I'm not either. And I don't like that we only won 1-0. That's, like I said, I'll take the win, but I don't feel good about it.
Tim, who would you say was like the star of the week this week for Chicago?
I mean, it's got to be Fleury. To me, there is no doubt in my mind. DeBrincat is a reasonable, if you wanted to come up with somebody else, Seth Jones is another one. But to me, Marc-Andre Fleury and his regain to form is the reason that we had the success that we had on this road trip. And you love the flower, and I got to give it to him.
Okay.
David, who's your start of the week for the Wings?
I gotta go with the captain, man. Dylan Larkin has looked good all week.
Nice.
He's continuing to look better and better. His shot's getting there. Yeah, gotta go with Dylan Larkin.
He's been having a really good bounce back season this year, like really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not a points one, but I got to give it some more at Cider for not just absolutely flipping out on Blashill for being tied to Danny DeKaiser after he was clicking so hard with Nick Leddy.
That sucks.
Like, I know they were on the ice for, what was it, 3 of the goals against, who was it? I know he was, like, him and DeKaiser, I'm pretty sure were on the ice for all, like, 3 of the game, or all 3 of the goals for Vegas, but, like, I don't know, Cider himself did not look bad that game.
Mm-mm.
And the fact that he got, like, just weirdly hit and then came back the next game looked great.
Yeah.
It looked bad. Like, it looked real painful.
We can go and do the flash forward segment though. So for anyone who's not familiar with the flash forward, basically what we do is we look at the week that's coming up for the clubs and just sort of like dissect what we're looking at. We're just talking about the Hawks, so we'll go ahead and just start with their flash forward this week. We should pull up the schedule. So
we've got. Do you want me to just jump in?
Yeah, go ahead and just take us through, Tim.
So tomorrow we've got the Calgary Flames, and that's gonna be a challenge. And then Friday we have the Blues, and then Sunday we have the San Jose Sharks. Okay. So, and it looks like we're at home for the Blues and the Sharks games, which is going to be a nice little recharge, being able to not have to jump back out after that road trip. But we round out the road trip tomorrow in Calgary. So I think I want to be the biggest optimist in the world. I don't think we beat the Flames. No. You know what? I'm going to say we take it to overtime and we lose in overtime. So we get that point.
So 5-2 it is. Okay.
Yeah. You know what? No, I don't. We're going to lose that game. We're not even going to get 1 point. So we lose to Calgary, but I think we beat the Blues because I hate the Blues. And I think realistically we can beat the Sharks. I know that they have actually been, if you've been watching the Sharks or paying any attention to the Sharks, they have been a better team this year than they have been the last 2 years. That said, I still think that their best guys are well past their primes in their like mid 30s. I think that their rookies haven't taken that step forward yet that helps them balance. I think we can beat both the Blues and the Sharks at home.
Yeah, Calgary's going to be tough. That team has a fire under them right now. Get it?
I love the pun. But also realistically, like, yeah. And they're getting scoring from every line. They're getting guys that aren't their like superstars involved.
Pick Calgary as a playoff team? Because
I don't think any of us picked Calgary as a playoff team.
They're looking hot.
Stupid.
So we have 2 games, right, Jordan?
Yeah, we just have the 2 games this week, I think.
That'll balance you out on the schedule.
Next week, 7 games.
Yeah.
So the Wings just have 2 games. Yeah, 2 games coming up this week. We play against the St. Louis Blues on Wednesday and then the Buffalo Sabres on Saturday. I feel like the Blues is a toss-up game again, but I have to imagine we can beat the Sabres, right? Like,
we beat them before. We beat them a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Jordan. I think I could see us winning one and losing the other. But I think I'm leaning more towards us winning against Buffalo. I think we could beat St. Louis if we can get whatever's out of our system, and you put Letty and Cider back together.
I-
I think we win one, lose one. I think we lose to the Blues and we beat the Sabres.
There you go.
I don't think the Blues is going to be like a landslide loss though. Like I think that's going to be like a 1 or 2 goal game where it's like the one like the one actual goal and then like the empty net seals it. Like I don't think it's going to be like another like 5-2 loss like we seem to have this week.
Yeah, I think we win it by a goal or we lose it by a goal.
Because like the other thing is like the Wings are going to have had 3 days worth of rest before that game. Last week they played a back-to-back and then they played every other day, and like that's traveling all along like the western side of the country. So the Wings didn't really get like a full rest a day between those games. So maybe that was why they just weren't performing up to snuff. But I don't know. I do think the St. Louis one, like you said, is a loss, but I think the Buffalo one is a win. Like,
yeah,
I think it's a 1-1 stand.
Yep, I can do that.
Tim, what do we have coming up this week for the Blackhawks?
Oh, I think he already.
Oh, no, we already did. Sorry. Sorry, kid.
I was like, oh God.
Jordan's memory's gone.
Was that a fever dream? Did I imagine that?
Sorry, I'm flipping through schedules and like there's popped up for me again. I'm like, wait, I thought we already went over this, but maybe we didn't.
Cut the
because
booze.
usually
I don't know.
like usually I like close the tabs when we're going through the schedule, and I guess I didn't close that tab for some reason this week.
You scared me for a second.
Your eyes got huge. You're like, wait a minute.
I was coasting. I earned this. Whew.
But no, I think that's our show for this week. I don't see anything else on the docket or on the schedule. If you're still tuning in and listening or watching the show, we really appreciate you guys tuning in and watching or listening. At the end of the day, it's a podcast. It's by fans for fans. We do this for you guys. We enjoy interacting with you guys from time to time whenever we get fan mail. So please feel free to send it to us. Give us a like, a share, follow, whatever the social media currency of choice is that you want to give us. We're on SoundCloud. You can just type in Stick Blade Podcast, will come up. We're on YouTube, same deal. Just type in Stick Blade Podcast, will come up. We're on Facebook, YouTube, or we're on Twitter at Stick Blade Pod, all one word, no underscores or anything like that. We're on Apple Podcasts. If you want to get in touch with us via the old-fashioned email, you can email us even, stickbladepodcast@gmail.com. Just plenty of ways to get in touch with the show and just give us any sort of like feedback, criticism, topics for the show, rude remarks, anything like that. We enjoy getting it whenever we do get it. And it's been a long time since we've got it. So please give us some.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's our show for tonight. So for your host, Jordan Linscott, and my co-host, David Barnhouse and Tim Stompanato, this has been another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. We'll catch you guys all next week. In the meantime, take care and stay safe. We'll see you later.
Go hockey.